Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you're watching this. This is another astrology reading from Phoenix, 3rd to the 10th of June, including the extra day because we have, as you'll see below, the annular eclipse on the 10th, and I wanted to include that to make sure that we covered it and the preparation work, because this week's about preparing your space. It seemed to make sense to do it now rather than to wait, and then maybe you'll see it after the event next week when I upload next Thursday. So we've got a big week, or emotional week, of letting go, and I'm doing the format a little bit different this week. I'm gonna whiz through everything as it is today in the chart and the table, and I'll do the chart and the table for the 10th, and I will then include in my reading for today the rest of the week ahead leading up to specifically the 10th and go into that into detail. I hope that works for you okay. Feedback in the comments if you think it didn't work for you, but it seemed to be the most logical way to attack this week in the way that things were showing up. As you can see below, we've got this wonderful alignment that happens on the 10th. That's going to be the main event, but we are a week away, so we've got a week of astrology to get into before that, so let's go into it now. Right, let's look at this week coming up, and I'm afraid it could be an emotional one leading up to the eclipse. The themes are about preparing and releasing emotional baggage. For some of us it could be trauma's time to be released. We have the moon aspects, and we have Mars in Cancer opposing Pluto retrograde in Capricorn this week. If you are a Scorpio, pay close attention to your feelings, as this is your two ruling planets facing off against each other. Also, Mars in Cancer natives need to be aware too. There won't be any Pluto Capricorn natives. You would be over 200 years old at this point, so you will have crossed over. The intensity of Mars in Cancer opposing Pluto is going to be most intense around the 5th, when it goes dead on 180 degrees. And Mars moves into the critical degree of Cancer late on the 9th, getting ready for the solar eclipse on the 10th. Mars in Cancer and Pluto in Capricorn are both cardinal placements, and it's earth and water. Water is flowing forwards with momentum, whilst the earth energy is flowing retrograde in retrospect. This can be a powerful opposition, leading to breakthroughs or breakdowns in emotions and workflow. Cancer and Capricorn are both negatively charged signs. That doesn't mean bad, that's just this, with a positive and negative charging. Mars falls in Cancer, learning a big lesson before lunging into headstrong Leo. That'll be a fun ride. Pluto is insistent on this reality check as one of the retrograde planets, and Mars in Cancer is a defensive placement. The moon this week is busy. It will square Venus and Mercury, trine Mars, as it wanes towards the new moon on the 10th. The squaring of Venus and Mercury in Gemini gives us two little lessons, or flare-ups. Mercury is the head, it's that masculine mind, and Venus is the loving heart, which is more feminine. And they will be at odds with the moon in Pisces, and then it's transition into Aries. The moon is the emotional side, the feminine mind, so there will be tricky spells or patches. Love entanglement and strange communications could pop up this week, especially as Mercury is, of course, retrograde, and it can play havoc with our communication system. The Gemini sun is trine Saturn, which is retrograde in Aquarius. It's not an exact 120 degrees at the moment, but it will be next week. This will give even more intensity to this aspect. That happens on June the 14th. and will be in next week's report. So moving on now to today as a whole, Thursday. Well, we've got a lot of mutable signs. We've got 5 with Gemini and Pisces, plus the 2 nodes are Sagittarius and Gemini. There's 3 cardinal signs with Cancerian Venus and Mars placements, and plus there's a supergenerational placement of Pluto in Capricorn. The fixed energy comes from Saturn and Uranus, who of course are squaring each other in Aquarius and Taurus respectively right now. As to how this kind of relates to the aspects, well, the Sun is positively charged, trine Saturn and sextile Chiron. This expresses itself as positive self-expression, moving forward with self-discipline and being in that sense of control. This also gives a healing hand from Chiron, so our wounds are there to heal as part of our emotional and physical learning. It's part of why this week could be an emotional one. And speaking of emotional, the moon, it squares both Venus and Mercury. It's more intense with Mercury in Gemini first, and then as that wanes, it moves on to Venus in Cancer. This can drive up past feelings and old hurts, getting stuck in the past, but also with Venus being in Cancer, it can create the kind of clingy, moody, possessive attachment side of things. You might feel a bit stuck here, so being aware of this before you go through it can be an advantageous position. Now Mars trines Neptune and is in opposition to Pluto. As I said before, and that intensifies as this week goes ahead, with Mars trining helpfully Neptune in Pisces, which is an ascended placement, you may find that your skills of creating are enhanced this week, and it could be part of the healing process to release toxic thoughts. Help heal wounds can come through our artistic side, whether that's drawing and painting, creating digital art, or poetry and music. It could be helping a focus on the artistic side of things for the week ahead. To me, it feels a bit like a stay in the cave week. For today, healing and artistic expression may come up to help clear a lot of our old baggage. Our old shit might need to clear that space it's using up in order to allow the new good stuff to come in. The waning moon, emotional challenges, cave time. Unless you feel alright to come out, maybe the best advice here or analogy is to tortoise it. You can stay in your shell when it's too much, and you can come out when it's nice. Yeah, tortoising is now a thing. So without there being any other major placements in the week, we're going to jump ahead to the solar eclipse. 10th of June 2021, 11:13 AM UK time, almost 11:11. So as we skip forward a week, which I'm doing this now as I explained last week, by the time that this comes up on Facebook or YouTube, and most people are going to get to see it, they're going to be at work. Next week's report is going to come too late for a lot of people. So with the big event of the day happening Thursday morning, 10th of June, the annular solar eclipse, as part of the new moon placement, it seemed appropriate to go into it here, especially as there's not really that much going on in this week. It is kind of like a healing and releasing week leading up to the eclipse. Now, first, with the eclipse, I do want to give a health warning. The eclipse will be viewable in the UK and part of the US, depending on the sunrise times. So it's the maximum eclipse is supposed to be, it's calculated to be 13 minutes past 11 UK time. And they say it's about 6:52 AM on the east coast of the US. so take that into account. But if you are thinking about viewing it, please take great care and take precautions if you do want to check that out. I mean, of course, over here, knowing the UK weather as we do, it will likely be cloudy as hell on the day, so that'll be that. The annular solar eclipse is named after the ring of a fire effect that you get. Annular meaning ring-shaped. It is not a total eclipse, but we will get one of those this year in the great ending to the year that seems to be aligning. The second lunar and solar eclipse combination culminates in a total solar eclipse on the 4th of December. The lunar eclipse is on the 19th of November. For info, that eclipse will be the other side of the Taurus and Scorpio axis, so like reverse placements to what we had on the 26th of last month. Astrology wise, on the morning of the 10th of June, we have the Sun, Moon and Mercury all conjunct in Gemini in that 19 to 20 degree range. Venus and Mars are 20 degrees apart from each other in Cancer, with Mars now being in that critical degree of Cancer, like the final lesson of this placement. Jupiter and Neptune are in Pisces, Uranus and Black Moon Lilith are in Taurus, Pluto's in Capricorn, and the nodes are on the Gemini and Sagittarius axis. Remembering, of course, that Mercury, Saturn and Pluto are all retrograde currently. So that super conjunction of Sun, Moon and Mercury all trine Saturn and squaring up to Neptune. They complement the Saturn in Aquarius retrograde influence and are at odds with Neptune in Pisces. So that's issues regarding our balance between what are our rules, our boundaries, what is Neptune's visionary, dreamy, esoteric unity, consciousness, and what is illusion. It's a conundrum between where the illusion lands and where does it fall apart, remembering that Saturn in Aquarius is a rebel placement, and rebels can rebel against progression too, in the same way if I suppose you would look at like, all Republicans voting one way simply because they don't like the Democrats. Yeah, the whole partisan rubbish. From an esoteric point of view, the eclipse is nullifying. The Sun, Moon and Mercury, in this instance, are in an alignment here, so they kind of cancel each other out. It's all happening here in Gemini, and Gemini's the twins, those two minds. This eclipse signifies to me that it's a note to switch off the brain. Just temporarily, don't, remember to switch it back on. You're going to need it. The emotional side via the moon, the thinking mind that is Mercury, and that overall expressive self that is characterized by the Sun. Switch off. Switch off and allow yourself space. Space to receive, without directing it, without feeling. Just allow yourself to be in that clear, quiet space for a few minutes. Like the clearest unthinking meditation you have ever experienced. To be the receiver, the receptor. Use your antenna. Go from your crown chakra. Reach out and allow things to come in. Things that are clouded out by the mental fog that is everyday life. Make some notes afterwards, and you will need to be clear. You will need to show discernment as to what is real and what is illusion, and what is deceptive practice. So there are going to be a few things that are going to be best practice to take into account, and rather than the kind of astrology reading part of it, I've done a little bit of a reading in association with Egyptian god Thoth, who's also Hermes, who's associated with Mercury. So energy reading wise, in association with Thoth, also known as Thoth or Thoth, depending on, or Juti or Hermes, depending on which kind of school you associate with. Here's the reading. It is clear that it's imperative to do work beforehand, to prepare yourself and your space. This time is seen by many as dark and deceptive, and a time when big illusions happen. And the thing is though, working with Thoth and Anubis for a few years now has given me some confidence in what I'm talking about. It's about showing discernment. It's about preparing your space. It's about being clear and protected at the same time, that will allow the right messages to come through. Thoth guides me to tell you to create a reception area, where you will sit, where you will be, to receive the energies, to concentrate on receiving the energies and any guidance, healing energy that comes during this eclipse period. It's not necessarily an altar, but a dedicated space. And you are going to cleanse that space. You're going to cleanse yourself with sage or Palo Santo. Something like that. Absolutely call in your guides that you feel you are safest working with and the most protective ones for you. So for me, that's Iset or Isis, Anpu, Anubis and Thoth. Clear your mind in safe knowledge that you've called them in, you have them, you are working, you are protected. And from that safe space that you have prepared, you're guided to work with what comes in. They're going to block out, they're going to filter out stuff that's not helpful. It's going to be for the highest good. Acting without precautions or protection does leave you very vulnerable to illusion. And so it is. You have been advised, and it is for you to do what you feel is right. But with this week, I think it would be crazy to not prepare your space. But then, maybe I'm the crazy one. Who knows? Also, remember that there's the 3-day halo, so that you may do it prior to the actual eclipse, and you may do it the day after, so 9th, 10th, 11th. May get a slightly different experience not doing it at the time, but dedicating your time and your mental space to it is going to be of benefit. And crystals wise, I am guided to use an earthing stone like aragonite. I'm using Priscilla bluestone. I'll be using a black stone which will be shungite, but jet or obsidian or tourmaline, something like that, would be a good comparative stone to use. I'll also be using a tiny bit of copper and my Super 7 crystal in the space that I'll be working with. I'll also have an ankh as part of the kind of notable protection available in that space. Also crystals like the amethysts and the other kind of purpley ones are going to be good, and I'm also getting a feeling of selenite being useful here as well. So that's the reading aspect from it, and that concludes this week's astrology report. I hope that the week ahead is not too difficult for you, and remember to reach out for help and assistance if you need it. Support is always available. And obviously, you know, the biggest event of next week I've already covered here, being the solar eclipse, but we'll go into more things next week because there are still things happening as we go through this cycle of eclipses. We have these 2 eclipses, we have these retrograde planets, there are more planets to go retrograde. It's just this cycle at the moment is a real clear out, and it's funny, you know, the way things are going on the outside as we look inward, and we'll look towards our own healing. Sometimes like how at odds it can appear sometimes, but that's that's part of this wonderful journey. So thank you all for listening or watching this report, and I will see you again. I'll probably be uploading the video a bit later because I'll be in the eclipse space, so I'll probably do it after midday on Thursday the 10th. So I will see you on the other side. Cheerio! You made it all the way through to the end of this video. Great, thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter, Facebook, all the usual social media. This is Phoenix saying goodbye.